There is a particular quality to a winter forest that anyone who has walked through one recognizes immediately. The silence is different from the silence of a summer night. It is not merely the absence of birdsong or insect hum, but something deeper, a stillness that feels almost physical, as if the air itself has thickened and slowed. The trees stand bare and motionless. Snow, when it falls, descends without sound. The usual rustling, buzzing, chirping soundtrack of nature has faded to near silence. This is not subjective impression or seasonal melancholy coloring perception. Nature genuinely does become calmer during dark seasons. The biological activity that fills spring and summer, the constant feeding, breeding, growing, and dying, drops dramatically when light fails and cold descends. Entire categories of life enter states of dormancy or hibernation. Metabolic rates plummet, movement slows or stops entirely. The ecosystem, which operates at a fever pitch during the long, bright months, shifts into a profoundly lower gear when darkness dominates. Why does this happen? What biological and physical processes create the winter calm? And why does it matter, not just to the organisms undergoing these changes, but to humans who move through winter landscapes and feel, often without understanding why, that the world has become a quieter, slower, more inward place? The answers lie in the fundamental ways that light, temperature, and energy availability shape life on Earth. Winter, or the dark season in any climate, is defined by reduced light and colder temperatures, and these two factors constrain almost every form of biological activity. Plants cannot photosynthesize efficiently without light. Cold-blooded animals cannot function when their body temperatures drop. Food becomes scarce. The entire trophic pyramid, from plants to herbivores to predators, contracts, and as it does, the visible and audible activity of nature diminishes. But this diminishment is not death, it is strategic retreat, a collective waiting. The calm of the dark season is nature resting, storing energy, preparing for the explosion of life that will come when light and warmth return. To walk through a winter forest is to move through a world that is not absent, but dormant, not empty, but deeply, intentionally still. In this story, we will explore the layers of this winter calm, what happens to plants when light fails, how animals adapt to cold and darkness, why winter is so much quieter than summer, and how even the physics of cold air and snow change the way sound moves through the world. By the end, the winter stillness may feel less like emptiness and more like a different kind of fullness, the fullness of patience, rest, and the deep biological wisdom of knowing when to stop. The calm of winter begins with plants. They are the foundation of almost every terrestrial ecosystem, the primary producers that convert sunlight into chemical energy and make life possible for everything else. When light diminishes and cold arrives, plants must respond, and for most temperate and high-latitude species, that response is dormancy. Dormancy is not simply not growing. It is an active physiological state involving reduced metabolic rate, cessation of visible growth, and the mobilization of protective mechanisms that allow the plant to survive conditions that would otherwise kill it. Deciduous trees shed their leaves, cutting off the water-hungry, light-collecting structures that would freeze and die anyway. Nutrients are drawn back into the trunk and roots. Growth stops completely. The tree becomes, in essence, a skeleton, alive but barely, conserving every bit of energy until conditions improve. This mass withdrawal of green life from the landscape changes the entire sensory environment. The rustle of leaves in wind disappears. The canopy, which in summer filters and scatters sound, becomes bare and acoustically transparent. The forest floor, once shaded and damp, is exposed to sky and frost. The visual impression is of bareness, but the deeper reality is strategic retreat. Herbaceous plants, grasses, wildflowers, ferns, die back to ground level or disappear entirely, their energy stored in underground roots, bulbs and rhizomes. What was a meadow full of movement and color becomes a still expanse of brown stems and snow. The visual calm is matched by biological calm. Photosynthesis has ceased, growth has stopped, and the plants are waiting. This dormancy is not random. It is triggered by environmental cues, primarily changes in day length, photoperiod, and temperature. As autumn days shorten, plants sense the declining light and begin their shutdown processes. This is why autumn colors appear before the first hard frost. The trees are already preparing for dormancy, breaking down chlorophyll and reallocating resources. Without this period of rest, spring growth would not be possible. Many plants require a period of cold exposure, vernalization, to properly synchronize their development and initiate spring blooming. Dormancy is not interruption of the life cycle, but an essential part of it. The calm of winter is the pause that makes the vigor of spring possible. For soil life, too, winter is a time of reduced activity. Microbes, fungi, earthworms, and other organisms that break down organic matter and build soil structure slow down dramatically in cold conditions. Some enter their own forms of dormancy. The rich, living soil of summer becomes quiet, its inhabitants waiting in suspended animation until warmth returns and they can resume the work of decomposition and nutrient cycling. The result is an ecosystem operating at a fraction of its summer productivity, where once energy flowed rapidly from sun to plant to herbivore to predator. Now the flow has slowed to a trickle. The calm is metabolic as much as acoustic. Nature is literally running slower, burning less fuel, waiting. If plants create the visual calm of winter, animals create the acoustic one. The sounds of nature, birdsong, insect buzz, the rustle of small mammals, the calls of frogs, largely disappear when the dark season arrives. This is not because animals have left, though some migrate, but because many have entered states of dormancy that make them invisible and silent. True hibernation is a profound physiological state characterized by dramatically reduced metabolism, slowed heart rate, and lowered body temperature. Arctic ground squirrels, for example, can drop their body temperature from 99 degrees Fahrenheit to 27 degrees Fahrenheit, below freezing, and maintain this state for weeks, waking briefly to warm up before returning to hibernation. During hibernation, the animal is not simply sleeping, but in a near-death state, its body barely functioning, consuming stored fat at a minimal rate to survive until food becomes available again. Many animals that people assume hibernate, including bears, actually enter torpor, a less extreme form of dormancy. Bears slow their metabolism and heart rate and do not eat or drink for months, but their body temperature drops only slightly. They can wake and move if disturbed, which true hibernators cannot. Nonetheless, torpor removes these large, usually noisy animals from the winter landscape. The woods that echoed with their movements in summer are silent of them in winter. Rodents, the true champions of hibernation, largely disappear. Chipmunks, groundhogs, and many species of mice and squirrels enter underground burrows and hibernate through the coldest months. Bats cluster in caves or trees, their metabolism slowed to near nothing, invisible and silent until spring. Amphibians, being cold-blooded, cannot function in freezing temperatures. Frogs hide in unfrozen water or burrow into mud and leaf litter, entering states of brumation, reptile and amphibian dormancy. The chorus of spring peepers and bullfrogs that filled summer evenings is gone. The ponds and wetlands fall silent. Reptiles likewise retreat underground or into sheltered spaces, their body temperature dropping with the environment, their metabolism slowing until warmth returns. Snakes den together in large groups. Turtles burrow into pond mud. The rustling, basking, hunting activity of warmer months ceases. Insects, the great mass of animal life in most ecosystems, largely vanish. Some overwinter as eggs or pupa, metabolically inactive until spring. Others hibernate as adults in leaf litter, under bark, or in buildings. The constant hum, buzz, click, and chirp of the insect world disappears almost entirely, leaving a silence that is one of winter's most striking features. Birds present a more complex picture. Many species migrate, removing their songs and calls from the winter landscape. Those that remain, chickadees, woodpeckers, ravens, owls, are often quieter in winter, conserving energy, calling less frequently. The dawn chorus of spring, with its cacophony of territorial songs and mating calls, is absent. Winter birdsong is sparse, functional, stripped of the exuberance of breeding season. Even large mammals that remain active, deer, moose, wolves, move differently in winter. They conserve energy, travel less, rest more. The landscape that was full of tracks and signs in summer shows fewer in winter. The animals are there, but they are quieter, more cautious, less visible. The cumulative effect is profound. An ecosystem that in summer is alive with movement and sound becomes in winter a place of near silence. The animals have not died, they have withdrawn into states of minimal activity, waiting for conditions to improve. The calm is biological strategy refined over millions of years of evolution. Beyond the biological reality of dormancy and hibernation, there are physical reasons why winter feels calmer. Cold air and snow alter how sound travels and how the environment absorbs or reflects acoustic energy, changing the auditory character of the world in ways that deepen the impression of stillness. Cold air is denser than warm air, and sound travels differently through it. In general, sound travels faster in cold, dense air, but it is also absorbed and scattered differently depending on frequency. The result is that winter soundscapes have a different tonal quality. Certain frequencies carry farther, others are dampened, creating an auditory environment that feels both sharper and more muffled at once. More significantly, snow is an extraordinary sound absorber. Fresh, fluffy snow is full of air pockets that trap sound waves, preventing them from reflecting back into the environment. This is why a world covered in fresh snow feels so profoundly quiet. The usual acoustic reflections, sounds bouncing off ground, vegetation, and structures, are absorbed by the snow blanket. The effect is similar to being in a soundproofed room. The silence is not just the absence of sound sources, but the active absorption of whatever sound remains. This acoustic dampening contributes powerfully to the sense of winter calm. Even human activity, footsteps, voices, machinery, is muffled by snow cover. The world becomes acoustically soft, padded, insulated. Combined with the biological silence of dormant plants and hibernating animals, the effect is almost eerie in its completeness. There is also a visual component to winter calm that affects how we perceive the environment. Snow reflects light in ways that create a peculiar brightness even on cloudy days, or a stark, high-contrast landscape under clear skies. This visual stillness, the uniformity of snow cover, the absence of color and movement, reinforces the auditory stillness, creating a multisensory impression of profound calm. The darkness of winter nights, longer and deeper than summer nights, also contributes. Without moonlight or starlight, a winter night can be profoundly dark, and in darkness, the other senses recalibrate. Sound seems louder, distances harder to judge, the environment less knowable. Yet, because there are fewer sounds to hear, the overall impression is still one of quiet, a vast, dark quiet that feels ancient and primordial. Even the wind changes character in winter. While blizzards and storms can be violent and loud, the still, cold days between storms have a windless quality that summer rarely achieves. Without wind to move leaves and grasses, without the thermal currents that stir summer air, winter stillness can be absolute. The world holds its breath. The biological and physical factors creating winter calm are underpinned by a fundamental ecological reality. Winter is a season of dramatically reduced productivity. With less light and colder temperatures, photosynthesis slows or stops. Primary production, the conversion of light energy into plant biomass, drops to near zero in many ecosystems. This collapse of primary production cascades through the food web. Herbivores with little to eat either migrate, enter dormancy, or survive on stored food or scarce browse. The constant grazing, browsing, and foraging activity of summer disappears. Meadows and forests that echoed with the sounds of feeding animals grow quiet. Predators, in turn, have fewer active prey. Many switch to different food sources, reduce their activity, or rely on cached food. Wolves and foxes hunt less frequently, conserving energy. Hawks and owls, facing reduced prey populations, become less active. The drama of predation, chases, kills, calls, happens less often, further reducing the soundscape of the season. Reproduction, which drives enormous amounts of animal activity in spring and summer, ceases in most species. No courtship displays, no mating calls, no territorial disputes. The acoustic environment that in summer is saturated with breeding-related sounds becomes in winter functionally silent on this front. The urgency of reproduction, which creates so much visible and audible activity, is simply absent. Even scavenging and decomposition slow dramatically. Cold temperatures inhibit the bacteria, fungi, and insects that break down dead organic matter. A dead tree or animal that would be rapidly consumed in summer might lie frozen and largely intact through winter. The activity of decomposition, often invisible but contributing to the overall biological hum, is on pause. The result is an ecosystem in which almost every form of energy flow and biological interaction has slowed or stopped. Nature is not dead, but it is operating in a profoundly different mode. The calm is the outward sign of this shift from high-energy summer activity to low-energy winter conservation. This reduction in productivity also means reduced competition and reduced stress for the organisms that remain active. With less at stake, no breeding, less feeding pressure, the intensity of life decreases. The frantic energy of summer is replaced by a more patient, enduring quality. Nature is not rushing, because there is, quite literally, nothing to rush toward. Humans, despite our technology and insulation from the environment, are still biological beings subject to the same seasonal cues that govern the rest of nature. Our bodies respond to reduced light and colder temperatures in ways that mirror, to some degree, the dormancy and hibernation we see in other species. Melatonin, the hormone that regulates sleep, is produced in greater quantities during long winter nights. Blood levels of melatonin rise, signaling to the body that it is time for rest and reduced activity. This is not pathology, but ancient biological programming. In the dark season, conserve energy. Our circadian rhythms, the internal clocks that regulate sleep, wakefulness, and countless other physiological processes, are anchored by light exposure. In winter, with reduced daylight and extended darkness, these rhythms shift. We naturally tend toward more sleep, less activity, and a slower pace. For people living close to nature without artificial light, this shift would be even more pronounced. This biological slowing contributes to the subjective experience of winter calm. It is not only that nature around us has quieted, we ourselves have quieted. Our metabolisms, while not entering true dormancy, do shift toward conservation. We feel less energetic, more inclined toward rest and inward focus. We move more slowly, think more slowly, inhabit time differently.
Cultures that have lived for generations in high-latitude environments recognize this seasonal shift and work with it rather than against it. Finnish culture, for example, speaks of gaining power from the darkest winter months, of allowing the darkness to teach rest and softness. The ability to slow down, to let go of summer's productivity and ambition becomes a survival skill, psychological as much as physical. Modern life, with its electric light and heated interiors, allows us to ignore these cues to maintain summer-like activity levels year-round, but research suggests this may come at a cost. Living in what some scientists call biological darkness, environments with insufficient natural light exposure can disrupt metabolic health, mood, and overall well-being. There is growing recognition that humans, like other species, may need seasonal variation in activity, rest, and light exposure to function optimally. The psychological benefits of embracing winter's calm are also becoming clearer. People who allow themselves to slow down in winter, who spend time in dark, natural environments, who practice rest and reflection rather than constant activity, report improved mental health and greater sense of alignment with natural rhythms. The calm of nature, when met with calm in oneself, becomes restorative rather than oppressive.
The calm of dark seasons, viewed through the lens of ecology and evolution, reveals a profound wisdom that life cannot be sustained at constant high intensity. Every living thing, plant, animal, microbe, requires periods of rest, recovery, and reduced activity. For plants, winter dormancy is not wasted time, but essential preparation. The cold exposure triggers necessary developmental processes. The rest allows resources to be reallocated from growth to survival structures. Without this period of dormancy, spring growth would be delayed, weaker, less synchronized. For animals, hibernation and torpor are not failures to cope with winter, but sophisticated adaptations that allow survival in impossible conditions. A bear that remained active all winter would starve. A frog that did not burrow into mud would freeze. The ability to enter dormancy is not weakness, but evolutionary success. For ecosystems, the winter pause allows recovery from the intense productivity and consumption of the growing season. Soils rest. Predator-prey relationships reset. Populations are culled by winter's harshness, but not eliminated, ensuring that spring begins with healthy, adapted individuals rather than overpopulated, resource-depleted communities. This cyclical pattern, growth and rest, activity and dormancy, light and dark, is fundamental to life at latitudes where seasons are pronounced. The organisms that thrive are those that have learned to embrace both phases, to be fully active when conditions allow, and fully dormant when they do not. There's a lesson here for humans, who increasingly try to maintain constant productivity regardless of season, time of day, or natural cycles. The winter calm of nature suggests that rest is not optional but necessary, that periods of reduced activity are not failures but preparations, and that wisdom lies not in conquering the dark season, but in learning to inhabit it skillfully. The question of why nature feels calmer during dark seasons is answered through layers of biology, physics, and ecology. Nature does not merely feel calmer, it is calmer, operating in a fundamentally different mode characterized by dormancy, hibernation, reduced productivity, and minimal activity. Plants enter dormancy, withdrawing energy from leaves and stems, ceasing growth, waiting for light and warmth to return. Animals hibernate or enter torpor, their metabolisms slowing to near nothing, their bodies conserving every possible calorie until food becomes available again. The soundscape that in summer is filled with feeding, breeding, and movement falls nearly silent as the acoustic engines of the ecosystem shut down. Snow absorbs sound,
cold air carries it differently, and darkness alters how we perceive the environment, all contributing to a sensory experience of profound stillness. The productivity that drives summer's intensity collapses, and the entire food web contracts, reducing competition, activity, and the visible drama of life. Humans, too, respond to these seasonal cues with biological and psychological shifts toward rest and conservation, even when our modern lives try to override these ancient patterns. The winter calm we feel in nature mirrors, to some degree, the winter calm our bodies are programmed to seek. This is not death or absence, but strategic withdrawal. The calm of winter is nature conserving itself, preparing, waiting with the patience born of millions of years of evolution. Every sleeping bear, every dormant seed, every hibernating frog is proof that there is wisdom in knowing when to stop, when to rest, when to let the dark season do its work. When we walk through a winter forest and feel that profound stillness, we are encountering not emptiness, but restraint, not silence, but the sound of 1,000 organisms breathing slowly, waiting. The trees are alive beneath their bark, the soil holds dormant seeds. Under the snow, small mammals sleep in burrows. The ecosystem is not gone, it has simply turned inward, drawn a collective breath, and paused. And perhaps this is what the winter calm offers us, permission to do the same, to recognize that rest is not failure, that darkness is not emptiness, that the cycles of nature, activity and dormancy, light and shadow, growth and rest, apply to human lives as surely as they apply to trees and bears and sleeping frogs. The calm of the dark season is not something to fight or overcome, but something to inhabit, to learn from, and to honor as one of nature's most essential rhythms. When spring comes and the world explodes into life again, when birds return, insects emerge, leaves unfurl, that intensity will be possible only because of the winter that preceded it. The calm made the chaos possible. The rest made the growth possible. The darkness, as it always has, gave birth to the light.